We got to move on and we shift focus, ladies and gentlemen, to another development which many consider disturbing. Seattle became the first US city to outlaw caste discrimination after its local council voted to add caste to the city's anti-discrimination laws. The resolution was moved by Kshama Sawant, Seattle City Council member, and was approved by the council by 6-1 vote. The law now has sparked massive debate, with one section of the Indian American community claiming that the law maligns a community, specifically Hindus, and that it could generate more anti-Hindu discrimination. Joining us now, Dr. Makarand R, professor at JNU and also political commentator, and Pattai Suresh Krishnamoorthy, board member of COHNA. Namaste and Jai Hind, ladies and to the gentlemen. But it's the lady in question who's moved this bill, and the council has actually come out and said, right, what's wrong, Pattai Suresh Krishnamoorthy? Let me start with you. They are only passing a law against discrimination. On the face of it, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong about it.
Oh, there never is, isn't it? I mean, there is never anything wrong about passing laws against discrimination. But this particular ordinance, I mean, it's a law passed by the city of Seattle, so it's got a very narrow application. But this particular ordinance deliberately includes caste as a protected class. So in a sense, we're not talking about outlawing in the sense we normally understand it. It has been added to a criterion under which people can sue each other for caste discrimination, just like they can sue each other for racial discrimination or religious discrimination or any other forms of discrimination. The reason why we are so disturbed by this is because it is literally opening the door and inviting frivolous lawsuits. Kshama Sawant, we were all at the vote yesterday, and Kshama Sawant made it very clear. She said, and we have a recording of it. She said in open session that the whole point of this law was to encourage people in tech companies to sue their managers and bosses. She literally came out and said that. So all she is doing is, and she also said right off the bat that she wants to end capitalism, because the real purpose for her, the real enemy there is capitalism. She's a publicly acknowledged socialist. She considers herself to the left of people like Bernie Sanders. But her goal at the end of the day is to continue the division. Now in this, she is aided and abetted, if you will, by a shadowy organization called the Equality Labs, which looks like a one-person show with no particular finances that anybody can find. And they have been creating this drumbeat of caste as a traumatic event that's been going on in the United States forever. We know for a fact that is just not true. We know that, reputable organizations like the Carnegie Endowment have looked at this issue. They've come back and said that, less than 5% of people who identify themselves as Dalits in the United States have actually said they have faced a caste issue at work or elsewhere. They also make ridiculous claims like being a vegetarian is militant. They tag Jain community as being militantly vegetarian and therefore casteist. So at the end of the day, this is an invitation for people who feel wronged in any way, shape, or form to simply turn around and sue whoever they feel has wronged them, and make it as part of a form of a hate, right? Some form of a hate crime kind of discrimination. So it puts the entire Hindu American community, because now by default, you have to prove a negative. You have to prove in court that you are not caste. And I honestly don't know how anybody can do that.
The one opposing member, I'm given to understand, said that this is going to open up a whole can of worms, because expose corporates and people to unnecessary lawsuits, which will again become long-winded. But Makarandji, discrimination or casteism, is it only a phenomenon with the Hindu community? Is there not casteism, sectarianism, differentiation, discrimination across communities? So has that been defined? Or is caste identified only with Hindus?
No, that's the whole point. Coming to this ordinance, there was an amendment proposed which has gone through. But this is really a way to stigmatize Hindus. as bearers of this burden of discrimination. I just wanted to say that we are celebrating Dayanand Saraswati's 200th birth anniversary. He was born on the 15th of February in 1823, I believe. And I want to say that the entire history of modern India has been characterized by a bid to reform the traditional Varnashram system. So instead of acknowledging this history of reform among the Hindus from Ram Mohan Roy onwards, and Ambedkar is a late entrant into this, it is the reverse that this ordinance does, which is that it identifies Indian society and some other societies with a history of discrimination, not a fight against discrimination. That's the first thing. The
Correct.
Second thing is, see what's going to happen. Seattle has a large number of Indian techies.
Yes.
And they're all going to get policed now. There'll be officers in every major company to ensure that there's no caste discrimination. So they've created jobs. And who are the people who will be hired for these jobs? They'll be supposed experts. And who will determine who the experts in caste are? So you can see how this is a self-perpetuating gravy train for people with vested interests. And I want to ask a fundamental question through your channel. How does anybody know anyone's caste? They have no answer. The ordinance does not define how you can determine somebody's caste. So you're left with only two ways. One is ascription. I see your name, it is Narasimhan or Krishnamurthy or someone, and I say, aha, you belong to a particular privileged community. So it's ascription. But we all know that anybody can take anybody's name, as we know. It's happened, even Ambedkar. That's not his name. His family name was Sakpal. So ascription. The second thing is self-representation, self-identification. So what is to prevent anyone from saying, I'm a Dalit? And how can you ever prove you're not a Dalit? So this is going to open up a whole can of legal and other kinds of worms, a Pandora's box, as my learned colleague just pointed out, and it's going to tie up companies in endless litigation. And everyone's going to look back over their shoulders, wash their back, say, we don't want to get into any trouble. So this is really, I guess, a retrogressive legislation, and I'm afraid other people will follow suit, and soon this is going to come back home to bite us. There'll be officers in TCS and Infosys and Wipro tomorrow doing the same sort of thing, because the noise has already started that Bangalore, the tech firms are all very Brahmanical and so on and so forth. And I just want to end by saying one thing, that even the Constitution does not define caste. All that it has done, the Constitution of India, is it has taken the Government of India Act of 1935 and adopted the schedule of scheduled tribes and scheduled castes from the Government of India. So it's a British construct which we have adopted in order to give quotas and reservations.
A Portuguese term, a British construct, part of Indian Constitution, but now a law in the US of A. So in a city in the US of A. So that's how it is. And Rajiv Malhotra ji, I'm just reminded because I read it in The Snakes in the Ganga, where he actually said that this is coming from the academia and they are going to start it in the US and it's going to come back down into India. It's going to attack the tech services, and that's a strength, soft power of Bharat, and eventually even go right directly towards the IITs and aim and brand all IITs as castes too. So this is a long-winded thing, is what Rajiv Malhotra ji has said in his book. We'll have to say whether it's nipped in the bud, it stops at Seattle, or what happens going forward. Right now it's a city council. It's not a state or a provincial law. I have to wind up. We will take this forward with the promise of a longer chat and a greater discussion on this. But right now I have paucity of time. Thank you.
Just one.
Thank